Okay, this is Mike Patty with AmericasNewsNow.com, and I'm fortunate enough to have Shana Mahaffey on the line. She's an author of Sounds Like Crazy, and she's right in the middle of her virtual book tour. So, Shana, welcome. And I just want to say, I'm sure there's probably thousands of other people that you could have interviewed with. So, honestly, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to us, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate you guys having me on the show. This is very exciting. So, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
I definitely want to ask you about your book, Sounds Like Crazy, but before I do, it seems like I run into a ton of people online through forums or websites that are either in the process of writing a book, or they want to write a book, or maybe they've kind of completed it, but they don't know what to do next in terms of publishing. And I'm sure some of those readers and viewers will be watching this. What advice could you give them to take the next step in getting their book published?
Well, if somebody has a completed manuscript, there's different paths you can take. I have the very good fortune of belonging to a tremendous writing community in San Francisco. Very supportive writing community. I share an office space with several other writers. At the time I was going through this process, these other writers had all been down that road, as it were, so I was able to get advice from different people. And the path that I followed, which if you're writing fiction is the traditional and the usual path, I found an agent, and then my agent shopped the novel. And it sounds very simple when I say, oh, I found an agent. It's a lot of hard work. I did a lot of research. I created a spreadsheet with over 100 agents and, their names and what they're interested in and how you query them. And, was it email? Was it mail? Like, did they want 1 page, 10-page chapters, that type of thing? And I queried over 100 agents. And I ended up getting an agent. So the advice I would give fiction writers who have a completed manuscript is, don't be daunted by the number of agents you need to contact, and don't give up. It sometimes takes a lot of queries to find that right agent, and then my agent worked with me on my novel, and then it went out, and she's the one that did the rest of the work from there to pitch it to editors at different publishing houses.
Okay. And
Another path that some of the authors, I'll just say this real quick, that some of the authors in the community have taken, they've gone to the self-publishing route, and they've gone and published their books on Scribd, so they have an electronic book. And there are small presses. There's one here in the Bay Area called Numina Press, where you can actually, they are printing the physical copies of the book, so that's also an option. And I think that that's becoming, it's a lot easier to do nowadays. So those are the two options for people who are ready to publish.
the one thing you said that kind of jumped out at me was actually hooking up in the real world with people that have experience that have already been through it. That kind of jumped out at me. What
Yes, that I would strongly recommend, find the writing communities wherever you are, and definitely become a part of a writing community.
Good.
That's the best thing I ever did. Yeah.
Good. What was your motivation for writing Sounds Like Crazy? And I got to ask you, does any of the book, mirror any of your personal life at all?
Well, yes, it does mirror some of my personal life, but I know that the question that always comes up for me, so I'll just, I'll point to the elephant in the room and name it, is do I have multiple personality disorder? And that was a big question that the editor at NAL, which is a Penguin imprint, my editor asked before she bought the book was, did I have multiple personality disorder, or DID? And my agent asked me, and my response was, well, that depends. Do I need it? Because it's like, yes, I can have it if I need it, but I don't have it. But I have tremendous compassion for anybody who's suffering from the disorder, because I had wanted to write a book, about how somebody would manage a tragedy, manage like a real real traumatic experience that happened in their childhood before they had the faculties to deal with it. And then, I started doing research, and I knew a little bit about dissociative identity disorder, which is now the common term for multiple personality disorder. And I decided that that would be really an interesting way to explore how somebody coped with trauma. So that's why I decided to go down that path with a character who had DID. But yeah, it's my first novel, and I know that I think a lot of writers do this in their first novels. I did borrow, like, take events from my personal life, people that I know, friends, family, that type of thing, just to use different things that I pulled together
Sure.
for the book. But yeah, it's not certainly not a memoir at all. It is a novel.
What Sure. What are some of the challenges that you faced in writing the book, either writing or personal or even business challenges in writing the book?
Well, there's several challenges. I mean, the first one, I would just say, like, the biggest challenge for me was just overcoming my own fear and inertia to actually commit to writing and writing the book. If somebody asked me how long it took, I would say it took me about 18 months to 2 years from
Mm-hmm.
start to actual contract with the publisher.
Mm-hmm.
But then I saw a former boyfriend from college when I was out, when the book released, and I was doing a book signing. He said, I'm glad you finally did this. And this was 20 years later. So apparently it's taken me 20 plus 2 years to get there. So I had a real uphill battle just fighting myself. And then the second thing, most authors are not able to support themselves through their writing. So I have a full-time job. So just finding the time and the energy to write around the full-time job,
Sure.
that was also another challenge. But in terms of the creativity and the story, I never had any challenges there. It was just me getting out of my own way to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So that kind of led me to my next question. Did you run into any sort of writing blocks, and then how do you overcome those?
I have serious writer's block, like, on a daily, hourly, minutely, if minutely is a word, basis. Yes, I'm always struggling with the writer's block, and I basically have tried making friends with it. I have all kinds of little rituals that I do. One that I learned from my grandfather, who's a huge influence on my life and my writing, was that you discipline. You need to show up every day at a certain time, commit to the time, and you show up and you do it. And even if you just stare at in his case it was the paper, but now for me it's my computer screen, at least you're there. And so that's the one of the things that I do is I do just have a set time that I write every day, and I make sure that I keep that time no matter what. And
Mm-hmm.
if I don't feel well, if I'm really busy, that's my time to do that. And then I have my other little kind of odd ritual that if I'm really having trouble, I have my grandfather's old sweater in my writing office. I can wrap that around my shoulders. I have, breathing exercises,
Mm-hmm.
drink too much coffee, different little things like that. So
Sure.
eat chocolate. That's my one time where I can just, you can have chocolate, you can have coffee, whatever you need.
Writer's blocks are
And
good then. You can eat as much chocolate as you want.
exactly. So.
I think I read in another interview that you did where you'd mentioned that you might exhibit some forms of the multiple personality disorders in your writing process. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. And what I meant by that is that I become very, very, very involved with my characters. And I start to see the world through their eyes, and I really, like, I'm talking to you on the phone, looking out the window, and this would be one of those things I can see leaves and trees, and I would think about, well, what would Cassidy, who's the main character in my current novel, like, what would her perspective on that be versus Ingo, who's another character
Mm-hmm.
in my current novel. And I like to do this, just like experience the world world through their eyes. And I'm very, with my writing process, I decide what I want to explore in a book. I figure out like my theme, what I want to explore, who I want to do this through, like who are my main characters. I write the end of the book, so I know how it's going to end, and then I write the beginning, and at that point, then the characters can just cut loose and go. And so that's where I really allow my characters to kind of have freedom, and by letting them have that freedom, yeah, they kind of do take over my life
Mm-hmm.
sometime where I'll be listening to music that I wouldn't normally listen to, or
Uh-huh.
just different activities that like eating food I might not eat, or going places, just for the sheer experience of what it would be like as
Sure,
them. So
sure.
yeah, and a character with multiple personality that Holly in my novel now, she's a voiceover artist, so I went to a recording studio, put on the headsets. I went through the whole process of doing voiceover stuff.
Wow.
I did a lot of things like that just to feel what it would be like,
Mm-hmm.
to actually do the things that I was having her do.
Sure. What's next for Shana Mahaffey?
Well, the next thing I just mentioned, I'm working on a novel now that we're going out of the realm of, psychology and mental illnesses into more death and past lives and current lives. And this novel is about a woman whose name is Cassidy, and Cassidy has to correct a mistake she doesn't know she made, and guiding her through the process is her best friend's dead brother. So we go into a lot of different worlds, and instead of like in this case, the book is set in Berkeley. It sounds like crazy. It's set in New York City. This book is set in Berkeley, California, and I'm exploring the whole alternative lifestyles. And her parents are um, big fans of the Grateful Dead, and so it's a very different book. But you will find I like to connect my books in the manner similar that Robertson Davies, who's one of my favorite novels, he did, where he connects his books through characters. So you will meet up with Holly, who's the main character
Okay.
of Sounds Like Crazy, as a teenager, and her father in
Sure.
this book.
Okay. So look for that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell us about Sounds Like Crazy? And then more importantly, if somebody wants to order or get hold of the book, how did they do that? And then if they want to contact you somehow, maybe for writing advice or something, how can they get a hold of you?
Okay. Well, it sounds like crazy. Yeah. It is. I think we've touched on it a little bit, but it's about a woman who has co-conscious multiple personality disorder. This is Holly Miller, and she is also an Emmy award-winning voiceover artist. So she uses the voices inside her head to do her job as a voiceover artist, and the voices don't get along. So if you know the book Civil, which was the most popular book ever written about dissociative identity disorder, what I'd like to say is Sounds Like Crazy is a little bit like Civil meets The Simpsons,
Mm-hmm.
because it is filled with a lot of dark humor, but it does take on some very serious topics. And I will say, just to be objective, that I have gotten a lot of really great reviews about the book. I know people have really enjoyed it, and I've met with a lot of book clubs who really found this to be a good book for a book club, because there's a lot to discuss in it. And if anybody wanted to get the book, you can, well, I like to support independent local bookstores, so I'd say try your local bookstore first. You can obviously buy it online at Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble, but if you want a signed copy of the book, on my website, ShanaMahaffey.com, you can go on the books section of the website, and you can order. There's instructions there how to order Sounds Like Crazy from a local bookstore here. And they've set up the service for local authors that if somebody wants a signed copy of your book, they just send them an email, and then they contact me and say, could you come up and sign this book? And I go sign it, and off it goes in the mail. So,
That sounds
and
great,
if any,
Shana. Shana, I'm sorry,
yeah, and
we're running out of time.
okay.
Sounds like a great holiday present, and I'm putting it on my list.